In the cold silence of deep space, a signal cried out. It wasn't meant for the average ear. It wasn't even meant for most species. It was encrypted, layered in harmonics that only a handful of civilizations could decipher. One of them was humanity. The message reached Earth's Starfleet Command at 0420 hours, Standard Time. Inside a dimly lit operations room, red and blue lights blinked across curved walls of glass. A transmission officer leaned forward, adjusting his headset. "It's a distress signal," he said quietly. "From the Velari system. Priority 1. 10 minutes later, Commander William Carter stood at the center of the war room. Carter was a tall man in his late 30s, with sharp features and a steady gaze. His dark uniform bore no decorations, only the silver emblem of Earth's outer fleet on the collar. He didn't care for medals. He cared about results and lives. He watched the playback of the signal with folded arms. A soft, melodic voice filled the room. "This is Counselor Evela of the Velari people. Our cities are burning. The Drovak have broken through. We have no fleets left. We ask no, we beg for assistance. Please, help us." The message repeated, again and again, looping like a prayer. Carter looked around the room at the other high-ranking officials. Their faces were grim. Admiral Knox, head of the Earth Defense Council, spoke first. "We can't intervene, Commander. The Velari are outside our jurisdiction. They're civilians," Carter said flatly. "And the Drovak don't care about jurisdictions. They'll keep going. They'll come for us eventually." "That's speculation," Knox replied. "We don't have the resources for another war. We barely held them back at Lyra 7 last year. One misstep, and we could be facing an all-out invasion." Carter clenched his jaw. He had been at Lyra 7. He'd seen the Drovak annihilate an entire colony. No warning, no mercy, just erasure. "We have the Revenant," Carter said quietly. That made the room go still. Knox's eyes narrowed. "The Revenant is a prototype, unstable, unauthorized for active deployment. We're not discussing it." "Then what are we discussing?" "Letting an entire species die." A long silence followed. The council moved to private deliberations. Carter stepped out, fuming. He walked through the sterile corridors of Fleet Command, barely noticing the officers who saluted him as he passed. Minutes later, he stood before a secured blast door. A retinal scan, voice ID, and thumbprint opened it. Inside was the Revenant. It rested in the dock like a sleeping predator, sleek, dark, and unlike any other ship built by human hands. Powered by experimental dark matter fusion cores, it was faster, stronger, and more deadly than anything in known space. But it had never been tested in battle. Carter approached the main viewing window. He stared at the ship in silence. Behind him, a soft voice spoke. "You're thinking of stealing it." Carter turned. It was Lieutenant Aria Vega, his chief navigator and longtime friend. "They'll let the Velari die," he said. "We can't. You know what launching her without orders means." "Yes, it means saving lives." She nodded slowly. "Then I'm in." By the next morning, Carter had assembled a skeleton crew, officers he trusted with his life. Engineers, pilots, techs, and medics. All volunteers, no questions asked. They worked in silence, preparing the Revenant for launch. Systems were activated, weapons primed, fuel cells loaded. The ship hummed to life like something ancient and powerful awakening from sleep. As Carter stepped aboard the bridge, the AI interface greeted him with a calm female voice. "Commander William Carter. Unauthorized activation detected. Status, rogue. Mission parameters not found." "We're writing new ones," he said, settling into the captain's chair. "Coordinates?" the AI asked. "Set course for Velari Prime." The ship lifted off from its docking clamps with a low rumble. As it exited Earth's orbital defense grid, alarms sounded across Fleet Command. Carter didn't look back. The stars ahead stretched wide and endless. The mission had begun. The Revenant slipped through space like a shadow. Behind it, Earth grew smaller by the second. Blue oceans, white clouds, and green continents faded into the black, Ahead lay the unknown and a people on the edge of extinction. Inside the ship, the crew moved with silent purpose. Everyone knew what they had signed up for. No one complained. No one asked how long they'd be gone. They simply worked. Commander William Carter stood on the bridge, eyes fixed on the stars. His voice was calm, but his mind raced. Every action he had taken in the past 24 hours went against protocol. If they failed, there would be no rescue, no forgiveness, only silence. Navigation, he asked. Lieutenant Aria Vega, seated at the helm, replied without turning. Course locked. 2 jumps to the Ashari Reach. Estimated arrival at Valari Prime, 37 hours. Carter nodded. Any pursuit? No signs yet. But Earth's long-range ships will catch our trail eventually. Carter looked toward the ship's AI interface, a smooth, glowing sphere set into the control console. AI, confirm cloak integrity. Stealth systems at full power. Signal masking engaged. We are invisible to all standard scans. Good, Carter said. Let's keep it that way. Below the bridge, in the engine room, Chief Engineer Malik Ross checked the fusion core. He was a bulky man with grease on his sleeves and humor in his voice, even under pressure. Dark matter reactors running hot, Commander, Ross said over the comm, purring like a cat with a plasma tail. But this thing's touchy. You push it too hard, and it could rip a hole in space. Carter replied, We'll only push when we have to. In the medical bay, Dr. Lena Moru prepared supplies for emergency aid. She wasn't a soldier. She'd been pulled from a civilian research center just 2 days earlier, but she believed in the mission. She believed people should be protected, no matter what species they were. On the lower decks, Weapons Officer Dax Monroe ran diagnostics on the ship's railguns and plasma torpedoes. Unlike the others, Dax was a former mercenary. He wasn't here for politics. He followed Carter because Carter had saved his life during the Orion conflict. Loyalty was all that mattered now. As the hours passed, the crew settled into their roles. The ship became a living thing, quiet, focused, waiting. Then came the alert. Commander, Aria said, eyes narrowing. We've got a ping. High energy burst. Vector 37. Pursuit. Looks like it. 1 vessel. Long-range interceptor. Earth class. Carter stood. They want us back. Orders? He stared at the screen. The pursuing ship was fast, faster than anything they'd ever faced in a chase. It would catch them in under an hour. Divert power to engines, he ordered. We'll burn 1 jump early. Ross's voice came through instantly. That's risky. We haven't cooled the chamber. If we wait, we don't make it to Valari. Get ready. Lights dimmed across the Revenant. The hull groaned as energy surged through its spine. The dark matter reactor pulsed like a heartbeat made of thunder. Engaging fold drive in 5. Aria counted. 4, 3, 2. Reality twisted. Stars turned into lines. Sound became pressure. Space folded around them like paper. And then it was over. The ship dropped into a quiet stretch of dead space. Empty, silent, no pursuit. Ross's voice came again. Everything holding. Cores hot but stable. Carter exhaled slowly. Good work. They were alone again, but not for long. As they drifted in the dark, a new signal came through. Aria caught it first. It's a Valari beacon. A refugee ship, damaged. No weapons, no shields. They're being hunted. Carter's face hardened. Plot a course. Boost shields. Prep medbay. Aria glanced at him. Commander, if we help that ship, we blow our stealth. The Drovek will know we're here. I know, Carter said, but we didn't come all this way to hide. The Revenant shifted course. Its engines flared quietly as it raced toward the signal. Beneath its hull, the first weapons of the war warmed to life. They would not arrive in silence. They would arrive with purpose. The Valari refugee ship floated helplessly in space. It was barely holding together, an old vessel designed for transport, not war. Its silver hull was scorched. Parts of it spun off into the void, drifting like broken wings. The distress beacon flickered weakly. Inside, hundreds of Valari huddled in silence. They were a graceful species, tall and slender, with translucent skin that shimmered like moonlight. Their large black eyes showed no anger, only fear. Their homeworld was burning, their cities gone. Now even in the stars they were being hunted. And then, through the black, a shadow moved. The Revenant appeared. The massive human warship slid between the refugee vessel and the oncoming Drovec pursuers. Its hull was silent, dark, invisible to radar, until the moment it chose to be seen. When its stealth dropped, the stars lit up with new fury. "Hostile ships on approach," said Lieutenant Aria Vega from the helm. 3 small-class Drovec hunters, their arming weapons. Commander William Carter stood at the center of the bridge. His face was calm, his voice steady. "Lock targets. Fire when ready." The Revenant's forward railguns came to life. 2 sharp pulses, and the lead Drovec ship exploded in a silent burst of light. A second shot clipped the wing of another, sending it spiraling out of formation. On board the Drovec ships, chaos followed. These were not ordinary prey. These were humans, and worse, they had brought a ghost ship, a myth. The Revenant's name had already traveled in whispers through the fringes of the galaxy. Now it was real. Second hunter ship charging plasma cannon, reported Dax Monroe, the weapons officer. His fingers flew across the console. "Suggest preemptive strike." "Do it," Carter ordered. The Revenant's plasma torpedoes launched from under its belly, 2 brilliant streaks of blue fire. They struck with pinpoint accuracy. The enemy ship shattered in 2, then burned out into nothing. Only 1 Drovec vessel remained. It turned and fled. "Let it go," Carter said. "Commander?" Aria asked, surprised. "They'll report back." "Good. Let the Drovec know we're here." A hush fell over the bridge. Carter turned to the communications officer. "Open a channel to the Velari ship." A soft, chime-like voice answered the signal. It was Counselor Evella, the same voice from the distress message. Her words were full of disbelief and hope. You are human." "Yes," Carter said. "I'm Commander William Carter. We've come to help." There was a pause, then a quiet reply. "No one else came." "They should have," he said. "We're sorry it took this long." The Velari ship was in critical condition. Its engines were dead, and its life support systems were failing. Dr. Lena Moru and her team prepped the Revenant's medbay as evac pods launched to bring the refugees aboard. In the hangar, the Velari stepped onto human steel for the first time. There was no ceremony, just exhaustion, fear, and quiet thanks. One child reached out and touched Carter's hand, then quickly stepped back, unsure. Carter simply nodded. Hours later, the bridge was quiet again. The crew watched a silent recording from a Velari security drone, footage of Velari Prime. Entire cities wiped out in seconds. The Drovec moved like machines, relentless and cold. No demands, no warnings, just annihilation. Lieutenant Vega whispered. They weren't attacking military sites. They were erasing everything. Carter stood still, his fists clenched. "They're not just at war," he said. "They're cleansing the stars." A deep silence settled on the crew. The mission was no longer about helping one world. It was about drawing a line. "They'll come again," Dax said. "Now they know we're here." "Let them," Carter replied. "We're not going anywhere." He turned to the crew. "From this point forward, the Revenant is a shield for the Velari and anyone else the Drovec target. We will intercept. We will protect. We will not run." No one objected. They had crossed a line, and now there was no turning back. Outside the ship, the stars watched in silence, and somewhere in the dark, the Drovec prepared their next move. The silence before war was never peaceful. It was heavy, like gravity thickening around the bones. It pressed on the mind, on the chest, on the soul, a kind of silence that came not from calm, but from knowing something was coming, and it would not be kind. The Revenant held orbit around Velari Prime. Below them, the surface was blackened. Once beautiful cities were now ash. The oceans boiled in places. Forests burned with no one left to put out the flames. A planet that once thrived was now a tomb. Inside the ship, Commander William Carter stood at the central display. Red icons blinked in steady rhythm. Early warning signals. The Drovec fleet was close. How many, he asked. Aria Vega, seated at the navigation console, answered grimly. 12 vessels, 1 battleship class. The others are destroyers and hunter ships. They're coming in fast. Carter narrowed his eyes. They've sent their hammer. Dax Monroe, arms folded, stood by the weapons bay. They're not just here for the Velari anymore. They're here for us. They want to make an example, Carter said. Show the rest of the galaxy what happens to those who resist. Just then, the ship's AI spoke. Incoming transmission. Origin. Drovec command vessel. Encryption level. High. Visual link enabled. Carter nodded. Put it on screen. The main display flickered to life. A face appeared, if it could be called a face. High Seer Varnak, leader of the Drovec Ascendancy, was not entirely organic. His skin was layered in plated armor, his eyes dim orange lights, and his voice metallic and hollow. Human, Varnak said. Seer Varnak, Carter replied calmly. You interfere where you do not belong. I belong where lives are at stake. Varnak tilted his head. You misunderstand. The Velari are not victims. They are errors. We correct errors. They're people, Carter said. Families, children, scientists, artists. They deserve to live. Varnak's tone stayed flat. Existence is not deserved. It is earned. The strong shape the galaxy. The weak feed its fire. Carter stepped closer to the screen. Then you've picked the wrong fire. A long silence followed. Then, without a word, the transmission ended. Red lights flared across the bridge. Drovec ships are splitting into formation. Aria reported. The flagship is moving toward us directly. Then they're coming for a fight, Carter said. Battle stations. The ship shifted. Crews scrambled to their posts. Shields rose. Guns extended from the ship's hull like armored limbs ready to strike. Engines rumbled softly as power surged through the dark matter core. Down in engineering, Ross checked and rechecked the fusion controls. In medbay, Dr. Maru prepared for casualties, her hands trembling slightly. She had never seen a real battle. In orbit, the Drovec fleet closed in. Their ships were jagged and angular, like weapons forged from old steel. They moved without sound or emotion, as if they were part of space itself, carving through it like blades. Distance to first contact, 90 seconds, Aria said. Carter's voice was calm. Let them come. The battle began with a flash. The Revenant struck first, railguns firing at long range. The rounds tore through a Drovec destroyer's hull, sending it spinning into debris. But the Drovec responded instantly. Plasma blasts lit the black sky like purple lightning. The Revenant shook as its shields absorbed the first hits. Shields at 82%, Dax reported. We can take a few more rounds, but not from that flagship. Carter turned to the AI. Target the command ship. Disable its main cannon. Lock to the AI responded. The Revenant surged forward. Enemy fire rained around it. The ship twisted, dodging through narrow gaps, slipping between enemy arcs with impossible grace. Inside the Drovec flagship, High Seer Varnak watched in silence. Then impact. A torpedo from the Revenant struck the command ship's front hull, tearing through armor. Fires burst across its surface. Systems failed. Its main gun fell dark. Back on the Revenant, alarms blared. We're hit, Ross shouted from engineering. Starboard engine core contained but weakened. We'll manage, Carter said. Keep pressure on them. Then came the surprise. A Drovec hunter ship broke formation and moved to flank. Fast, small, and heavily armed. They're trying to breach us, Aria shouted. They won't, Dax muttered. He fired 2 precise shots, first to cripple its engine, then its core. The ship exploded silently. Carter watched the battlefield. 1 ship disabled, 2 more retreating, and the flagship crippled but not destroyed. He stood tall. Broadcast to all Drovec ships, he ordered. Yes, sir, the comms officer said. Carter spoke clearly. You came here to burn the weak. You thought we would run. You were wrong. Turn back, or face what comes next. For a long moment, Space remained quiet. Then the Drovec ships began to pull away, not in defeat, but in calculation. The Revenant had not only survived, it had sent a message. They would not go down easily. They would not abandon the helpless. They would not run. Carter exhaled slowly, shoulders heavy but firm. Damage report, he said. Engines strained, shields at 30%, but systems are stable, Arya replied. He nodded. We hold position. Scan for more survivors. The fight isn't over. Around them, the stars burned quietly. The enemy would be back, but now they knew something new. Humans would fight. And when they did, they brought fire. The stars above Valari Prime were burning. The Drovec had pulled back, but they hadn't left. Their ships hovered just beyond firing range, regrouping, analyzing, waiting. The Revenant floated in the center of the field, silent but watchful, like a blade, drawn but not yet swung. On the bridge, the crew worked in silence. Commander William Carter stood at the main display, arms behind his back. He studied the enemy formation, tight, layered, controlled. The Drovec didn't panic. They calculated, they adjusted, they always came back stronger. Status, he asked. Lieutenant Aria Vega answered quickly. Enemy ships repositioned. Their flagship is still operational but damaged. 6 destroyers still combat-ready. Range 12,000 kilometers. Are they advancing? Not yet, but they're preparing. Dax Monroe stood by the weapons console. His eyes didn't leave the targeting data. They're not finished. They just want to hit us when it counts most. Carter nodded slowly. They're baiting us, trying to wear us down. They think we'll break first. Chief Engineer Malik Ross chimed in over comms. That wouldn't be the worst assumption, Commander. Starboard drive is still weak. Fusion cores stable but running hot. Shields are at 52% and climbing. But we're not exactly fresh. Dr. Lina Moru had already reported 5 injured, 3 critical. The med bay was crowded but stable. The crew was tired, but none of them showed it. Carter turned to Vega. Get me a direct course to their flagship. She hesitated. You're going after Varnak. We don't win this by waiting. We win it by cutting the head off the snake. A quiet silence followed. Then Vega gave a short nod. Course plotted. The Revenant moved. It shot forward like a spear through the dark. The Drovec saw it, hesitated, and then opened fire. Plasma bursts tore through space, searing past the ship's hull. The Revenant's shields flared brightly, holding for now. The crew stayed focused. This was no longer about survival. It was about ending the threat. Return fire, Carter ordered. Torpedoes launched. Rail guns thundered. The Revenant weaved between enemy ships, dodging and counter-striking. One destroyer was hit in its engine core, spinning out of control. Another was disabled by a direct hit to its control tower. Then they reached the flagship. Target its command deck, Carter said. No room for mistakes. Dax locked on. Locked. The Revenant fired, but the Drovec were ready. A powerful energy shield flared around the flagship, absorbing the shot. From within, new weapons emerged. Cannons powered by antimatter, glowing red and pulsing. They've upgraded, Dax muttered. Before Carter could respond, the flagship returned fire. A direct hit rocked the Revenant. The ship shook, lights flickered, sparks burst from the ceiling panels, shields down to 31%. Vega shouted, "We can't take another hit like that." Carter made his decision. Divert all power to forward shields and engines. We're boarding. Everyone on the bridge turned to him. You're serious? Dax asked. Carter's voice was firm. We disable that ship from the inside. We don't get another chance. In minutes a boarding pod was launched. Inside it, Carter and a 5-member strike team floated silently, drifting toward the Drovec command ship. The pod was coated in stealth plating, undetectable, unless scanned directly. It struck the hull of the enemy ship and drilled in silently. Inside they emerged into cold corridors made of black metal and strange blue light. Drovec soldiers responded fast. Tall humanoid machines with long limbs and glowing weapons. The team moved quickly. Carter led from the front. Every hallway was a fight. Every corner held danger. They reached the command core. Carter placed the charges. Suddenly Varnak appeared, tall, armored, silent. He moved like a machine but fought like a monster. Carter's team fought back with rifles and shock grenades, but the seer advanced without pause. Carter drew his sidearm and fired a full clip into Varnak's chest. The round sparked but didn't stop him. Then hand to hand, Carter met Varnak's charge head-on. The two clashed in a brutal, silent fight. Carter dodged, struck, rolled, but Varnak was relentless. Carter reached for the detonator. Varnak lunged. The strike came too late. Carter hit the switch. Explosions ripped through the core. Varnak stumbled back, his armor shattered. The lights around them failed. The Drovek command ship began to fall apart. "Get back to the pod," Carter shouted. They ran. The pod launched just in time, shooting back toward the Revenant as the Drovek flagship erupted behind them in fire and wreckage. On the bridge, Vega watched the blast from afar. Flagship destroyed, enemy ships breaking formation. Cheers broke out, but Carter said nothing. He was back in the medbay, bruised, bleeding, and silent. The battle was over. The Velari were safe, but everyone knew the Drovek would return, just not today. The battlefield was quiet now. Where once there had been fire and noise and screaming metal, there was only silence. Drovek ships, those that remained, had fled into the deep dark of space, leaving trails of broken debris behind them. The command ship was gone, reduced to drifting wreckage and vapor. And at the center of it all, the Revenant hovered alone. Inside, the crew moved slowly, quietly. Victory didn't feel like celebration. It felt like breath finally released after being held too long. Everyone was exhausted. In the medbay, Commander William Carter sat upright on a gurney, his ribs bandaged and shoulders stiff from the fight with Varnak. Dr. Moru scanned him once more, but he waved her off gently. "I'm fine," he said. "You're not," she replied, "but I've seen worse." Carter managed a small smile. "That's a compliment, right?" She gave a tired nod, then turned to check another patient. Carter stood and made his way back to the bridge. Every corridor he passed held signs of the battle, scorched bulkheads, flickering lights, torn panels, but every crew member he passed stood straighter when they saw him. Not because he asked them to, but because they believed in him. On the bridge, Aria Vega was in her seat, reviewing long-range scans. Dax Monroe was securing the weapons system. Ross was finally letting the engine cool down below deck, muttering to himself about the reactor, needing a week of sleep. Carter entered quietly. Vega turned her head. "No sign of pursuit," she said. "The Drovek fleet is in full retreat. Velari space is clear." Carter walked to the main console. A projection of Velari Prime hovered above it, scorched but still spinning, still alive. "Survivor count?" he asked. "Approximately 70,000, Vega replied. "Most from outlying colonies and refugee fleets. Main cities are lost, but the species survives." Carter stared at the image. Then it wasn't for nothing. He opened a channel to the Velari fleet. Counselor Evella appeared on screen, visibly shaken but standing tall. Her voice was calm, almost musical. "Commander Carter, we are alive because of you." "No," he said softly. "You're alive because you refused to give up. We only gave you the chance to fight for that." "You did more than that," she said. "You reminded the galaxy that strength can be used to protect. We will remember." The channel closed. Silence filled the bridge for a moment. Then the AI spoke, neutral as always. "Incoming message. Origin Earth Command. Priority 1. Carter exchanged a glance with Vega. "Put it through." The face of Admiral Knox appeared. His voice was tight, professional. "Commander Carter, you've disobeyed direct orders. You've stolen a classified vessel. You've risked war with a dominant alien power." Carter said nothing. "But you also saved a species and sent the Drovek into retreat. You've done what most of us didn't think was possible." Knox's expression softened. "Barely. You're ordered to return to Earth for debrief and judgment. But Unofficially, there are many who believe what you did was right. Some things matter more than rules. The message ended. Carter looked out through the viewing window. The stars were still quiet, waiting. Commander Vega asked, "Do we go back?" He didn't answer right away. Then no, she blinked. "No, we don't go back," he said. "Not yet. There are other systems out here. Other species running from the Drovik. Others who sent signals no one answered." He stepped forward, voice calm but clear. "If we return now, we become a headline, a courtroom drama, a political symbol. But if we stay, we become what they fear most, a protector they can't control." Dax smirked. "I like the sound of that." Vega turned back to her console. "Coordinates. Anywhere they need help," Carter said. "Set course for the next distress signal. Let's show the galaxy what humans are made of." The Revenant turned slowly, its engines glowing. It left the ashes of war behind and entered the stars once more, not as a weapon of Earth, but as a shield for those with no voice, no army, no protection. As it disappeared into the dark, its legend grew. A ghost ship, a savior, a warning. The humans had come, and they had brought with them something no enemy could destroy: hope.